Okay. Right, where do I start with this one? Okay. This is going to hopefully be a super quick video, but there's a ton of information in it. It's a huge decode, really, and it's something a little bit away from the norm right now. We're on the notorious Emerson Drive video with Erica Kirk ziplining down Fremont Street past the 910 reference for Charlie Kirk here. Okay. We also have this 1010, and so there's, obviously people are interested in it, and I've been wanting to do a video about it for a couple of days now, to discuss. Well, there's about 3 or 4 things here. Okay, so there was some interesting stuff. The fact that it's 1010 references back to the Sator Square. Okay, now I've probably got that in the title of this video, and I'll explain what the Sator Square is in a minute and when we get onto it. But before we get onto the Sator Square, I want to talk about this 1010 reference with the dollar bill and the $10 bill, because in the dollar bill and the $10 bill there is a fold in those 2 bills, and it's the old $10 bill. Let me just say that, clear that up before people get confused. So we're using the old $10 bill and the $1 bill, which hasn't been changed in forever. Okay, so those 2 notes have pretty much the same identical fold in them that references the dam. Okay, I believe it references the Hoover Dam. Whether that's it or not, I'm not 100%, but I'm pretty sure it's the Hoover Dam. So with the 1010 here, in the $1 bill, the 1010 is a Washington reference. I saw Mr. S put this in a comment in another video, on somebody else's video. 1010, the 10 square miles of Washington DC, a Washington reference with 1010. Okay, so let me show you these 2 folds that are pretty much identical in the $10 bill. So 1010, this is what we're going to now, 1010, and I will explain. And also just notice this, look, with the 10 here, notice that the S is in here. The S being the number 19. Okay, so this is super duper interesting, with, of course, and obviously the 10 as well, being the 10th of September. Okay, or 9/10 or 10/9, however you want to write your dates. Okay, so this is extremely important, interesting with Charlie Kirk, and we will talk just a little bit about. I don't really want to make this a decode about Hamilton. I really just want to show you these folds. But if we just look at Hamilton really quickly, that's on the $10 bill, he was also injured. He was killed with he was in a duel. I don't know where it is, but anyway, he was shot in a duel. Okay, down here somewhere, Burr. It was Burr that did it. Anyway, I don't know where it is, but anyway, also, if you look where he was born, Charlestown. Okay, Charleston, right? So yeah, it's cause of death, gunshot. Oh, here it is, pops up here. Burr Hamilton duel. Okay, so just some, some interesting stuff tying back again with the $10 bill. The duel reminds me of blimmin' Barry Lyndon, and I believe we had some 9/1 references in Barry Lyndon. I haven't had time to go back and double check everything that I had and everything, so it's just something that's going to be on the back burner for quite a while. But let's go back to this and I'll show you the 1010 fold. It's pretty easy to find. Let's get rid of this junk. Let me see if I can draw a line on here. So here's 110 here. See my cursor? Here's the other 10. Okay, and this exact pattern here is extremely, I almost would say it's the same pattern, this webbing that's underneath here, the net, which is interesting because if you read 10 backwards is net. Okay, so this webbing or the net that's underneath here is pretty much the same pattern that's on the dollar bill. I think anyway, it's very similar, if not the same. Okay, so let's try and draw this. Obviously my line thing ain't gonna work. Oh yes, it is. So you put your fold right through here, through the top of this little dude here, over to here, right through the 10-10, and see what you end up with here. You fold the top half out the way, fold the head out. Now remember, you know, when the shot was right here, this is where the blood was peeing out. Okay, okay. So this is important with the shot referenced in the $10 bill. It's just absolutely crazy, I'm telling you. Okay, but what you end up with is if you have this bottom half. Actually, that's not very good. Let's redo this. Hang on, undo. Let's undo that and undo that out of the way and undo that blood spilling out here. So what you do is you can draw the bottom part of the dam in. Okay, so this would be, you know, this would be the side of the valley here and here. This is the valley, this is the face of the dam here, and when the dam breaks, yeah, the blood gushes from the neck and it's coming over in the shape of the necktie here. Okay, so to me, the 10-10 is a really good decode for the $10 bill and Charlie Kirk's assassination. I have not run any number jumps for Hamilton through to Charlie Kirk stuff. Maybe if I get a chance tonight and if somebody in the comments wants to do that, that would be great. Saves me having to do it. If there's any interest in number jumps, and I'll pin the comment if there's some good ones, but I don't have time to do it right now. I barely got time to do this video. So anyway, there's that one. Now this is repeated in the dollar bill. Okay, so as you can tell, right, let's get this on. As you can tell, the same marker thing is down here and here. Okay, so when you draw your line through those markers where it was written 10, okay, you come through those markers, and again, what you end up with is again exactly the same thing. You end up with the next shot here with blood coming out, okay, but the blood is actually flowing over the top of the dam here. The necktie, the ruffles form the water breaking through the dam, the rebirth event. Okay, there's the dam walls. Okay, and there's a ton more symbolism in here. If you've seen my old decodes on the dollar bill, you'll know what we're talking about. You'll also know that 9-1, the 9-1 numerology that is in a different fold is the build-up to a couple more dates coming up. And the big date coming up that's in here is November the 10th into the 11th. So 11-11, 10-11. So obviously in October we're going to have a similar date. We're going to have a reverse date. We're going to have the 11th of October, which of course 10-10. 10-10 is the day before this. Okay, so 10-10 is the day before that. And of course the day before November the 10th is November the 9th through to there. So you see how this is all tying in. And then also this big date that is coming up in the dollar bill. And you can go back a few videos of mine. I do have it posted recently. So if you look back on a few of my videos, you will find this fold in here for the November the 10th. Again, if you take the November and change it to a 9, November meaning 9, Nov, 10, we've got Charlie Kirk again. Okay, I don't know how many times we can, you know, scooch things around and make that work. Okay, but this same fold is in the dollar bill. Yeah, Washington. Yeah, Washington DC is the 10-10. He is in the containment right now, and that container is Washington DC. Yeah, 10-10. Yeah, the original portrait, I don't know what it's called, the Athean, I don't know what it's called, the Anatheum portrait, or whatever it's called, where this comes from, the unfinished portrait of Washington. This is a reversal of that portrait, yeah, i.e. in this, Washington is trapped within the matrix. He is in the mirror. Okay, this is like an old mirror frame here. The omega that is right here is like an old mirror frame. Okay, there's a ton of stuff in here. Anyway, like I said, don't have time to really go through it right now, but I just wanted to reference back to this one because of the connections with Charlie Kirk, that 1010 on the zip line. Yeah, this is the zip line. Yeah, this thing here is the zip line where you have to make that fold. Note that the zip line in the video is going through 1010 here. Okay, super duper, and again 91 is part of a fold in the dollar bill. So let's get on to the Sator Square, the thing that I was wanting to talk about. Okay, the Sator Square. I've got some old decodes on this, but really where I learned about this, the place to go and find out about the Sator Square is Zenith of the Alpha America. He's got a ton of videos on it, so go check him out. Okay, much thanks to him and his decodes. The Sator Square. If you've been following my stuff, we've been looking at palindromic numbers. We've had several palindromic numbers with Charlie Kirk. In fact, the white wedding this year, which is the white wedding date, is 7/29. Charlie Kirk was 44 years and 44 days, dies 44 years and 44 days from Princess Charles, well, that'll probably be right, Princess Charles and Princess Diana's wedding date, from the white wedding. Notice that in the start of this video and through the video, there is a reference to the wedding. Yeah, the wedding is the reset point. Yeah, you have the death, you have the funeral in the church, then you have the wedding in the church. Okay, it's the reset point. It's getting to the church, to the Kirk, and the church, the Kirk, is also the Kirkle. The circle is that thing. Yeah, the cycle is the circle. So again, with the Sator Square, let's get onto the Sator Square just a second, and let me start showing you some of the stuff in it. So this thing, right, the circle, the church, we're going to, just bear with me and we'll go through it. So what it is, like I was saying, we've seen a lot of palindromic numbers. Charlie Kirk was on 7/29 this year, the white wedding this year, he was 11611 days old. Okay, and we also saw that through some other decoding. We had some 298892. I can't remember if I'm doing that around the right way, but that set of numerology was tying Charlie Kirk with that white wedding into Donald Trump. Again, that's in previous videos. Okay. Anyway, we want to talk about the Sator Square, Dan. Come on, get to the point. So we want a better picture of it first so you can see what's going on. I think there's one somewhere in here. Well, maybe not. Let's just click this a minute, because it's not very easy to probably read that. I thought there was one. Here it is. It's easy to see. So let's talk about some words that are in here. Okay. So what this is palindromic words. Okay, words that read the same forwards as backwards. Just like we were looking at, we've had a lot of palindromic numbers recently. And the idea of a palindromic number is almost like a cycle in itself. It's a beginning and end. It's a balancing number, or a word that is a reflection. Yeah, just as we were cutting that zip line, there's a point of, I would say about point of balance actually, but the head, see, when you cut where that zip line went through the dollar bill there, the head was being removed. What the head represents is the metaphysical. Okay, and then what the rest of the body represents is the physical body, controlled by the head, where the temple is. Yeah, the temple, the church, the place where you are able to go into the metaphysical, have ideas, okay, go into the dream world, yeah? That's happening up there in your head, okay? Or at least that's where we think it's happening, okay? So that line where we just cut through here is a separation, a mirror point between the metaphysical and the physical. Now the problem is, what we've lost, the physical has been, we've been separated out of the physical world with the dam. Yeah, we've moved into cities. We now are not in the physical world anymore. Okay, we're not in nature. Okay, we're living in the matrix. Yes, it is a physical world, but it's not the true physical world. Okay, so this is the idea of being in the matrix, which is basically it's a fabricated, man-made idea system which doesn't balance correctly. Okay, henceforth you get the dam. Okay, an imbalance. Right. Anyway, I just wanted to reference, this idea of the zip line is a balance point. And again, you see it with Philippe Petit doing the walk across the Twin Towers. Yeah, where was I at? Where's the Sator Square gone? Come on. So you see, the connection is, like with Philippe Petit when he did the Twin Towers. In fact, coincidentally, I think he did that on the same date as Snake Eyes was released. I think it was 7th of August, I think. I was looking at it the other day. But anyway, and I think Snake Eyes was 7th of August, 8/7 numerology. And then that other film I just did a decode on the other day, Spy Games, Robert Redford was 8,700 days from the release of that film, I think, to the death of Charlie Kirk. Or it might have been 8,700 from his birthday to the release of the film. Something like that anyway. I think it was 87 to the release of the film from his birthday. So we have this 87, the 87, the 187 reference, the 87, okay? Anyway, getting back to this, 1010. So you can see already these palindropic words, our mirror words, are balance. The idea of balancing stuff, yeah? This is, again, in this chart, yeah, in the square here, the 1010 is in the format of a cross. Okay, again, the cross balances thing. Again, we have the solstices, we have the equinoxes, these ideas of balance points. Okay, reflective points in the year, right? Start and stop points in the year. So the beginning and an end is a balance point. Yeah, just as the midpoint is, the opposites of those, and the midpoints of those, and the midpoints of those. So where you want to take your midpoint, we have to look at what we're looking at with balance numbers to see maybe we need to take into consideration, what's our other 2 points that we're balancing with, and how does that all tie together? Anyway, the whole purpose of life is to find balance in what we do, okay? And that's what's going on here is, to be reborn, you have to find balance between, the false ego and the true ego, the false world, the false physical, and the true physical. We've got to find some kind of balance there. That's the whole purpose. And that's this realization of, the great power that we have, which is to be able to go into the mind and imagine things and then create those things. That's the great power that we have that we abuse, okay? That's what, we're all addicted to that. And, coming to a conclusion or coming to a realization or an awakening and then going through that rebirth ritual of trying to get to a point where you're a better person and able to treat other people equally, yada, yada, yada. That's the rebirth. That's the Christ being reborn in us. Oh, anyway, 1010 is on here. So you can see that 1010 that we were talking about. Read it backwards. You've got a 10 here. Read it forwards. You've got a 10 here. 1010 in the cross. Yeah. Charlie Kirk is they're using him as the Christ-like figure. Okay. The sacrifice for sin. Okay. Anyway, 1010. Right. There's some other words in here. Now, what is interesting with Charlie Kirk is if you look, Sator runs this way, but if you read it in reverse, and there is an argument that this is actually backwards, this here, and it should actually read rotor at the front, rotus, sorry, at the front and at the top here, and be the other way around. But it doesn't really matter for the purpose of what we're looking at. But we can look down the bottom here and see rotas, okay, going this way, Sator going the other way, and we're going to go through some of these words in a minute. But if you look all the way around the outside, is rotas, like rotate, yeah. So that is that word. Rotate is a circle, essentially, even though we've not got a circle here, is circling the outside of this thing. We've got the cross in the middle of the thing, yeah. We've got opera, and then backwards we've got a repo, and I'm gonna talk about these words in just a second, okay? And then we've got them repeated here as well, up and down. But the first thing to note is the thing with rotas and rotate. That's where that word, our word rotate, comes from. These are all Latin words, and in fact, if I back up, and let's get off of this, and we'll go through the words, we can kind of start to understand what's going on with this thing. So Sator, if you look here, means sower or planter, founder, progenitor, okay, so usually divine. So this is a beginning, yeah. Sator is a beginning, and the opposite to that is, with our word, okay, is rotas, okay, which is to do with the wheel, rotate, rotor, okay, like a cycle rotates, okay. So we have one meaning a beginning again, you know, and one meaning, you know, a cycle, okay. Now remember, what is super interesting about that idea is that Charlie Kirk, you know, his death date is essentially the next day is the start of the cycle again. 24 years complete, yeah. So I've got 9/11 in here through to his death date, yeah. And go ahead, oh, go the wrong way. Go ahead, go to the 11th is the start of the cycle. 24 years. Why is that the start of a cycle? Let me bring up the cycles in question, okay. So what I've got here is I've got the Fibonacci cycle, I've got the Lucas cycle, and I've got one that I've just named the pi cycle. There's only 3 cycles that exist like this in terms of Fibonacci type numbers, okay. If you do the Fibonacci sequence out, running through the Fibonacci sequence is a 24 digit, yeah, 24 digit cycle that just repeats over and over and over again, okay. I picked this information up from with the Fibonacci cycle from Numberphile, and so that's a really good place to go and look at all these kind of pattern stuff. And also Lambda 115, okay. He was the first guy that I saw that put this cycle as it is here laid out into an actual circle cycle, yeah. Church, Charlie Kirk, circle, cycle. The circle is the holiest of holies, the hole that you go through to the metaphysical, yeah. Just as in the church door is the Vesica Pisces, yeah, not very good. You go into that to commune with God, yeah. That is the holiest of holies, yeah. Yeah. That's why you behave yourself in church, because you are communing with God, okay. Again, that is the Vesica Pisces, the female genitalia, the thing you pass through, the big O, okay. Right, undo that, undo that, undo that, undo that, undo that, undo that. So there's 24 digits in each of these cycles, okay. Anyway, like I said, Lambda had that in a cycle, and the way he had it set up, if I recall, he had it sort of like this, and 9 was here, you know, and then this was the stop and start of the cycle here, and then the next number on was 1, and then the next number on is 1. And as soon as I saw in that context, okay, it made a lot more sense to me. I said to myself, I should be looking at the, how stuff balances, because when we're looking at a cycle, we're looking at a midpoint in a circle as a balancing point, and then we want to look across to what's on the other side of that thing to see what numbers balance with each other, to see what numbers tie in with other numbers. Yeah. So, like I always say, with the Fibonacci cycle, this number, the double 11 here, that is from 9/11, the end and beginning of a cycle. 88 is the balancing numbers with that. Yeah, this 9 here is balancing with this 9 here. Okay, so 99, or the number 9 just by itself, balancing numbers to do with 9/11. And 9/11 is to do with the end and beginning of a cycle, just as Charlie Kirk on 9/1, okay, actually 9/10, but we don't count the 0, so 9/1 is the beginning and end of that cycle. And it just so happens that, of course, 9/10 is the day before 9/11. Yeah, it's 24 years since 9/11. Super duper important. Anyway, just out of interest, I had done a lot of work on the Fibonacci cycle. I'd started looking at Lucas numbers, then I realized, well, you can go ahead and you can do more of these kind of sequences, but it just so happens that embedded in any sequence that you make, pick any two numbers and start a sequence, if you know how that works. So if you took 10 and 21 and you wanted to start a Fibonacci sequence, you just add the previous number to that, so your next number would be 31. Okay, and then you take 21, add it to 31, would be 52, and you just keep going like that, okay, forever. In that sequence there, okay, you are going to find one of these three cycles. There's only three cycles, okay? There's a trinity of cycles: Fibonacci, Lucas, or pi. That's it, okay? There's a lot more to this. I don't want to spend a bunch of time on it. The point is, Kirk means circle. It means church. Again, the church is the connection to the metaphysical, okay? Just like the head, this thing that's on top of your, just to make things really simple, the big bloody circle that's on top of your head, that is your head, yeah? Hello. Okay, this thing here is the place where you convene with the metaphysical, okay? The rest of this is the body, the cross, yeah? You get it? You're getting this? Just as we see in the Sator Square, the 10-10 and the big circle. Yeah, okay. So anyway, let's keep going through these words here, right? So 9/11, 9/10 through to 11, completion of a cycle, the completion of a rotation, yeah, turning point, the rotation, yeah, with Charlie Kirk. Okay? The beginning and end, the sowing, to begin, yeah, the rote, the wheel, okay, 10-10 in the middle, yeah, okay, that means to hold, yeah, to hold, comprehends, possesses and masters, preserves, sustains. That's what the cross does, okay. That is somebody, if you're really a true Christian, there's not very many of them, you are a master at sustaining balance. That's what the cross does, okay? The cross is a representation of balance. Super duper important. And then we've got opera and arepo, okay? So let's go through these two words as well. So we've got the cross taken care of here. We've got the circle taken care of. Now let's look at opera and arepo. So arepo has nothing assigned to it as a Latin origin or anything, okay? So we'll do a little decode on that in just a second, okay? We'll have a bit of fun with this one. But opera, okay, look, service, pains, labor, care, effort, and attention, So there's this idea of like, it's almost like living life. It's almost like going through hardships and those kind of things, you know, taking care, yeah, to do something right. I don't know, attention, it requires effort, you know, that's the actual doing, yeah, the karma, yeah, the doing of whatever you need to do to be right. Okay, so that's quite interesting. One other thing that stood out to me as opera is, let's just go to where Charlie Kirk was shot. So he was down here. This is UVU. Yeah, this is the campus. He was in the bottom of the amphitheater. Usually what you would watch in an amphitheater is some kind of performance. Okay? One thing that springs to mind in an amphitheater is the opera. Okay? In fact, that's the first thing that springs to mind for the amphitheater, really, for me. Obviously, you'd watch a play there or something else, but the opera is really what springs to mind for the amphitheater. Okay? So, I thought that was interesting, yeah? The opera, all right? What else do I want to say here? So, okay, let's go back and let's just have a bit of fun with the last little bit here. Arepo. Notice, so there's no actual word for this, so people come up with all kinds of ideas. I've not done this one before, but I'm going to give you an idea here. We have the letter A, the letter O on each end of this word. The alpha and omega, okay, the beginning and end. And if we look at what rep means in Latin, well, I thought I had it up here. Okay, rep. Look, it's usually a prefix, generally means back or again, to redo, you know, rediscover, restart, however you want to do it, repeat, back or again, yeah? So quite an interesting idea with a repo, with the alpha and omega, to repeat, to redo, to start again, A through to O, the beginning and the end. And again, in the Greek alphabet, that should be a 24, that's A through, wow. It would be A to Z in the Greek alphabet, would be, I hope I'm getting this right, would be alpha to omega is the equivalent, which would be the beginning to the end, which would be 1 to 24. I don't know if I explained that correctly. But anyway, whatever. That's it, innit? Yeah, that's the video. As you can see, 10-10. Okay, Tenet. Oh, I love it. Okay, well, I'm just clicking back through here to make sure I haven't forgotten anything. Okay, good old Charlie Kirk. The circle, the church. The church is the circle. It's the place where you go through that hole. It's the portal through to the metaphysical. Okay? And again, back to Hamilton. And I expect that I wouldn't be surprised if you went and looked at the play Hamilton and some of the people in that. It wouldn't surprise me if there's one of them's born on a 9-10, just like I think they were talking about Donnie Darko with Frank the Rabbit, yeah, 9-10 as well. There's been several people with 9-10 stuff that all ties back into this. I'm going to leave it there, I think. Charleston. Unbelievable. Okay. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you on another one soon. All right. Cheers. Bye.